do you make, Tom, of these accusations that Harry is using his children as a weapon, I guess, against his family?
Very much my motive. I tried to find out the truth. And it was only by finding so many different, one way or another, silence Harry and Meghan. Because otherwise, these attacks from California.
The moment the metadata was mentioned, everything changed. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about a cute family photo anymore. It was about timestamps, original files, hidden edits, and a prince scrambling behind palace walls, while the internet tore into pixels like forensic investigators. Harry thought releasing that latest Lilibet photo would calm things down. Instead, it detonated. And not because of what was in the image, but because of what was behind it. The file data, the embedded information, the digital fingerprints people rarely think about until they start whispering secrets. And that's when the phrase damage control stopped being dramatic and started being literal. Because according to insiders, the second online analyst began dissecting the metadata, Montecito went into quiet panic mode. But before we get there, before we talk about emergency calls, legal reviews, and that late night meeting that reportedly left Harry pacing, we need to rewind to the man who lit the match. Tom Bauer just said something that has the internet absolutely losing it. And look, this guy isn't some random blogger chasing clicks. He's the one who's called out powerful people before. And
so Lily arrives, right? And it was orchestrated with the curating exactitude.
His track record speaks for itself. So, when he starts talking about Harry and Meghan's kids, people listen. But this isn't just tabloid drama anymore. People are connecting dots, timelines aren't adding up, and what should be simple facts about a family somehow feel like a mystery. So why does so much about Archie and Liette feel unclear? Before we get into this, what's coming next is going to blow your mind. That right there?
All sorts of relations in Britain. He hasn't got a purpose. He's embarrassed with his charities in Africa.
That was the spark. Because when Tom Bauer starts circling something, people don't shrug, they lean in. He's built his name on going where others hesitate. He doesn't throw soft questions. He doesn't float vague insinuations. He goes after structure, after documentation, after the stuff that should line up. And lately, the conversation wasn't just about birth, secrecy, or vague timelines anymore. It shifted to the photo. The new Lilibet photo. The one that was supposed to feel sweet.
Can you just tell them the truth? Can you say to the world, you're not giving him a title, and we want to keep him safe?
Innocent, personal. Instead, within hours, digital analysts, yes, real ones, not random trolls, started noticing anomalies. Timestamps that didn't align with the supposed shoot date. Editing software traces embedded in the file history. Location data scrubbed, but not completely. And once that thread was pulled, it unraveled fast. This guy has built his entire career on investigating people who try to stay out of the spotlight. We're talking about powerful figures whose lives are wrapped in secrecy. And Bauer is the one who goes in and reveals what's really going on. And what makes him credible? His track record backs him up. And here's what makes this explosive. It's not that photos get edited. Of course they do. Every public figure polishes images. That's normal. What's not normal is when the underlying data contradicts the public story. And that's where things got dangerous. Because the metadata allegedly showed that the image file had been created days earlier than claimed and processed through multiple revisions before its spontaneous release. Now, maybe that's nothing. Maybe that's just standard PR scheduling. But when you combine that with years of tightly controlled narratives, fuzzy timelines, and silence when questions arise, it hits differently. And according to insiders, Harry did not see this coming. He reportedly believed the image would quiet speculation. Instead, it reignited it. Because suddenly, people weren't asking about what Lilibet looked like. They were asking why the file history didn't match the story. And that brought back everything. The birth announcement confusion, the Portland hospital narrative, the timeline gaps, all of it. When Bauer tried researching Meghan's background, he kept hitting walls. He reached out to tons of her friends, trying to get their perspective, and most of them completely ignored him. Why? Because Meghan apparently made it very clear nobody should cooperate with him. That resistance, that wall, it's back, only this time it's digital. Sources say within 24 hours of the metadata conversation trending, there were internal calls between advisors, legal review discussions, even speculation about whether the platform itself could be pressured to limit amplification of misleading analysis. And here's where it gets heavy, because this isn't just gossip. Metadata isn't opinion, it's embedded information. It either aligns or it doesn't. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, let's be clear, discrepancies in file data can happen for innocent reasons. Export errors, time zone differences, software autosaves. But when public trust is already fragile, small inconsistencies become gasoline. And according to those close to the situation, Harry took this personally, deeply, because fatherhood is the core of his identity now. He's built everything around being protective, being present, being different from the institution he left. So when the authenticity of a photo involving his daughter becomes a forensic battleground, it cuts hard. Timelines that should be straightforward somehow aren't. Medical details that would typically be shared there, barely there. Public records that should match up, they seem off. And it's not. Just Bauer noticing this stuff. People online have been connecting dots for a while now. That's the real issue. It's the pattern. Individually, each discrepancy could be shrugged off. Together, they start forming a narrative. And insiders say the palace, yes, the palace is watching. Not intervening, watching. Because this time, it's not about an interview. It's not about a memoir. It's about digital documentation. And digital trails don't fade. They archive, they timestamp, they persist. Meanwhile, in Montecito, tension reportedly thickened. Harry, already sensitive to online narratives, is said to be monitoring everything. Forums, commentary breakdowns, tech threads dissecting EXIF data. And the irony, he's warned about misinformation for years. Now he's caught in a swirl of technical speculation that doesn't respond to emotional rebuttals. Because you can't argue with code. You can only explain it or ignore it. And so far, silence. Strategic silence. But silence in this case isn't soothing anything. It's amplifying suspicion. Because if the metadata conversation is harmless, why not clarify? Why not release the original raw file? Why not provide a simple technical explanation? That's what critics are asking. And every hour without response fuels the narrative that there's something to hide. Is there? No confirmation. But perception? Perception is running wild. And here's where the damage control becomes visible. According to reports, PR advisors are weighing options. Do they dismiss it outright? Do they provide a controlled technical breakdown? Or do they wait for the cycle to burn out? Each choice has risk. Dismiss it and it looks defensive. Explain it and you validate the scrutiny. Ignore it and it grows. And for Harry, who already feels cornered between financial pressures, public scrutiny, and family distance, this is another crack in the armor. Because this isn't about a memoir headline. It's about his daughter's image becoming a forensic case study. And that hits differently. Old military friends, once fiercely protective, are reportedly stepping back from commentary altogether. Advisors are tightening communication. Even the release schedule for upcoming projects is being quietly reviewed. Because when one thread unravels, everything connected to it becomes vulnerable. And right now, the metadata thread is tugging at years of carefully controlled narrative. This isn't about proving something dramatic. It's about trust. And once trust wobbles, especially around family, it's incredibly hard to stabilize. The bigger question hovering in the background, why was the image so polished? Why was the release so curated? Why was the data trail inconsistent? Maybe there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. Maybe it's nothing more than technical noise. But until someone addresses it clearly, the speculation doesn't stop. It multiplies. And that's where we are now. A prince in damage control mode. A photo meant to soothe, now scrutinized. And a digital breadcrumb trail that refuses to stay quiet. Part 2. If part 1 was about the spark, this is about the fire. Because once the metadata questions went mainstream, it stopped being niche tech chatter and became dinner table conversation. And that's when the real pressure began. Not from trolls, not from fringe forums, but from mainstream commentators asking one simple, dangerous question. If there's nothing wrong, why not just explain it? That question sounds harmless. It's not, because explanation requires transparency, and transparency has never been the Sussex strategy. They prefer control, precision, release what you want, when you want, how you want, carefully curated images, carefully worded captions, carefully timed announcements. But metadata doesn't care about narrative. It doesn't care about branding. It doesn't care about emotional framing. It just exists. And now it's sitting there, dissected, screenshotted, archived, analyzed by people who treat digital files the way crime labs treat fingerprints. According to insiders, Harry initially dismissed the online chatter as typical internet noise. He's used to that. He's lived in that storm his whole life. But when advisors reportedly briefed him that reputable tech analysts were discussing inconsistencies publicly, not accusing, not speculating wildly, just pointing out data, that's when the mood shifted. Because that kind of scrutiny doesn't fade overnight. It lingers, and it gets referenced, and it builds. Behind the scenes, the discussions allegedly turned strategic. Option 1, release the original uncompressed file. Option 2, provide a third-party digital authentication statement. Option 3, stay silent and let the cycle exhaust itself. Each option has consequences. Release the raw file and you invite even deeper scrutiny. Provide authentication, and critics ask why that step was necessary. Stay silent and the narrative grows legs. And here's where the situation becomes emotionally explosive for Harry. This isn't about him. This is about his daughter, her image, her digital footprint, her place in an already complicated royal narrative. And that's the part that reportedly hit him hardest. Because no matter how tough he tries to be publicly, sources say he's deeply protective when it comes to his children. Fiercely so. Almost hypersensitive to perceived attacks. So when people begin analyzing a photo of Lilibet, not for how adorable she looks, but for whether the file history aligns with the public timeline, it feels invasive in a different way. But here's the brutal reality. When you build your brand on authenticity, any hint of inconsistency becomes amplified. And that's what's happening now. It's not that people are claiming something dramatic, it's that they're asking technical questions. And technical questions demand technical answers. Meanwhile, the royal side of the Atlantic is reportedly observing very quietly. No statements, no commentary. But according to whispers circulating among royal correspondents, there's discomfort, not outrage, not anger, discomfort. Because every new wave of controversy reflects on the broader institution, whether they're connected publicly or not. And the last thing the monarchy wants, especially under a still stabilizing reign, is renewed debate about lineage narratives, documentation, transparency, and public trust. It's not that anyone is accusing, it's that the pattern feels familiar. Controlled release, vague clarifications, silence where clarity could exist. And over time, that pattern becomes the story. Financial pressure only complicates everything. Because let's be real, independence isn't cheap. Massive property in Montecito, security that rivals heads of state, lifestyle expectations, ongoing media commitments, Those Netflix deals, those book agreements, they aren't optional. They're structural. And when your public image is tied to authenticity, relatability, emotional honesty, any narrative crack threatens the foundation of those partnerships. Brands don't like unpredictability. Studios don't like prolonged controversy. Streaming platforms don't like digital forensic debates attached to family imagery. So now it's not just about online chatter, it's about reputation capital. Sources suggest there were emergency communications between PR teams and legal advisors within days of the metadata discourse trending, not lawsuits, not threats, risk assessment. Because once something enters the legitimate question category instead of the wild rumor category, it changes how you handle it. You can't simply dismiss it as conspiracy. You have to decide whether to engage or endure. Harry reportedly leans emotional. He wants to defend, he wants to protect, he wants to shut it down. But advisors are cooler. They calculate, they think in cycles, and their current bet, silence might be safer than explanation. But silence has its own consequences, because here's what's happening in real time. Screenshots of the metadata are being saved, archived, referenced in video breakdowns. Compared to previous image releases, old timelines are being re-examined. Birth announcement timestamps are resurfacing. Hospital narratives are being replayed. And suddenly, the latest photo isn't just a photo, it's a trigger, a reopening of unresolved doubts. The tragedy of it all? This could have been avoided with proactive clarity. Early transparency disarms speculation. Delayed transparency fuels it. And the longer there's no official technical clarification, the more people assume something must be there. Maybe there isn't. Maybe it's mundane. Maybe it's nothing more than software autosaving at a different time zone setting. But in the absence of explanation, imagination fills the void. That's human nature. And here's where things get emotionally messy. Because Harry already carries the weight of feeling misrepresented by media narratives his entire life. He's spoken openly about paranoia, trauma, public distortion. Now, watching online communities dissect a photo of his daughter must feel like a familiar nightmare. Except this time, it's digital code instead of tabloid headlines. Friends from his past, military comrades, once publicly supportive, are said to be staying completely out of this conversation. No defense tweets, no statements, silence, and isolation magnifies stress, especially when you feel cornered. Meanwhile, Meghan reportedly maintains strategic composure. Lawyers are alert. Communication channels are tightly controlled. No reactive statements. No emotional rebuttals. Precision. Always precision. But the internet doesn't respond to silence with calm. It responds with curiosity. And curiosity evolves into investigation. Investigation evolves into narrative. Narrative becomes perception. And perception is a battlefield they can't seem to control. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. When you curate every aspect of your public life, people expect perfection. And when perfection cracks even slightly, scrutiny intensifies. Right now, the metadata issue isn't explosive because of what it proves. It's explosive because of what it suggests. Inconsistency. And inconsistency erodes trust, even subtly. The longer this lingers, the more it risks becoming part of the historical footnote. 20 years from now, when documentaries revisit the Sussex era, will this be a minor blip or a symbolic moment when public trust shifted? That depends on what happens next. They have two clear paths: release clarity or endure speculation. One closes a chapter, the other lets it simmer. And based on current behavior, they're choosing endurance. But endurance comes at a cost. Emotionally, reputationally, digitally. Because the internet never forgets, metadata never disappears, and silence rarely convinces skeptics. So here we are. A photo meant to project warmth has ignited forensic fascination. A prince who escaped royal rigidity now facing digital rigidity he cannot bend. And a simple question echoing louder each day. If everything aligns, why not show it? Damage control mode isn't loud. It's quiet, strategic, measured. But make no mistake, it's happening. And until clarity arrives, this story isn't fading, it's embedding. just like metadata. What happens next will define whether this was a brief flare-up or the moment the narrative permanently shifted.